queen. Dew had heard a lot about her. She was the reason he and Avery got here in the first place. The elder spoke of her as she was more than just a hybrid woman. It was as if she was a fairy tale that had become reality. Wings, they had said. No, not bird wings, bat wings, or those of an insect like one would see from time to time. They said she had translucent wings, long and sharp at the end, and when the sun fell through them, sparks the colors of the rainbow would dance around her. Nobody knew where she came from. She wasn't from a royal family. Rufus II, 20 years old at that time, had been lost for a year while being out for a hunt and returned with her as his wife. Rumors spread that she came from a town deep within the forest, where souls that had lost their path were aided and guided to their destination. Even though over 4 years had passed, the memory of himself and Avery traveling from village to village wasn't as blurring as everything else in his mind. His companion had been focused on finding his brother. He promised to turn the world upside down. All Dew knew about the absent sibling at that point was that Avery had fallen sick during a walk in the woods and lost his ability to move anymore, so the brother promised to go and search for someone who could help. The boy never returned, but Avery got better, at least he said so himself, and found himself alone in this world. Due to a convenient visit in a shady city filled with drunkards and mostly men looking for happiness in every bed, they met an old woman who claimed she had access to all the knowledge in the world. Through her wisdom, they learned that Avery's little brother didn't die, but was now living in the place where the queen had come from. Of course, Avery immediately tried everything to find out the location, and now he was indebted to the king, and Dew had decided just to stay out of pure interest. At least that's what he told himself. Throughout his whole morning shift, Dew couldn't get his mind off of her and the portraits, which earned him several hits to the head by Frederick, who was growing more impatient with him minute by minute that day, even though he was doing a decent job. The tension between Tiana and Josephine had quieted down to a point where they just refused to talk to each other, and silently left the room once they were done with their work. Dew decided to stay with Frederick and help him sort all the books by topic while Charles was cleaning the dishes. How about the main course with fish? The people of Haven are known for their likeness for everything lurking in the water after all, the small man thought out loud. Dew took 3 fitting books and handed them to him. Frederick opened the page with the contents and put a set of glasses on. After a short moment of studying, he commanded Dew, "Search for salmon and lemon sauce. They might also call it a bitter end in 1 or 2 books. Oh, and also look for deep-sea adventure. We haven't done that in a while." Hesitantly, he took the first book. It was small compared to the other, but as he opened the first page and began to read, the letters began to dance and shift before his eyes, the words tumbled around before coming to a standstill. The chef's handwriting was just that bad, and the regular spelling mistakes made it nearly impossible for him to get what he was looking for. Still, he fought himself through every line until finding and writing down the first recipe, which somehow included brown trout that was roasted in garlic, lemon, and butter. Those fish didn't even live in the deep sea, so he knew. A few pages further down, he found another version of the recipe and went through the ingredients. Asparagus, butter, lemon juice again, herbs, a white marlin fillet. He stopped and read it again and again. Frederick noticed the aghast look on Dew's face and asked, "What is it now?" Dew turned the book towards him, pointed to the word and requested, "What does this say?" The man understood. "That says Merling, but we don't use those anymore. The king was so disgusted when he heard where that dish came from, he banned it from the kitchen. Besides, Merlings have probably died out in the last 10 years. We'll just use perch instead. It almost tastes the same. At least my master said so." He didn't know whether to be relieved or not. It had been obvious to him for the last 8 years that he might be the last of his kind. After a fisherman killed his unsuspecting mother, he had found himself alone in the lake. Some part of him thought it was better this way. Now Merlings with his special condition wouldn't have to go through the pain of being aware of everything happening around them while everyone else didn't. After a while, Frederick grew tired of Charles flying through the room, counting every single ingredient and polishing the surface of the table as if it was marble, so he sent him outside and Dew right after. The tall one was standing in front of the now locked kitchen door as if frozen. Guessing what was going on inside his mind, Dew suggested, "We could go to the city until the next shift starts. I have to get some things from the tailor." Unsurprisingly, he agreed. The marketplace of the city was busy as usual, as sellers had a competition on who could scream the loudest to attract more buyers, and, as usual, Dew tried to ignore them as best as he could. Very early on he had learned that he was an easy target for spending money on things he didn't need, and would have probably lost a fortune if it was him instead of Avery that took care of finances during their time traveling. They reached a small tailor shop that had been squished in between a tobacco shop and a carpenter, whose diligent work he could hear through the closed door. His business at the tailor didn't take long. Less than a week ago he had given 2 shirts and a dark grey cape the size of Dew's whole body to be repaired. Trying to keep Charles entertained, he suggested going to an outer point of the city, which he knew was a nice place to enjoy the view of the castle above. The place he was thinking of was a circular opening surrounded by an outer wall built like a staircase. In its middle stood a large monument of a horse covered with armor and carrying a bouquet of flowers in its mouth. They took a seat on the wall and gazed upwards. The sky, regardless of its grayness, didn't smell like rain. They sat in silence. There wasn't really anything to talk about. Dew didn't know his companion's interest since Charles didn't speak much. He preferred concentrating on his work. His own reasoning was a bit different. Not only did he struggle with expressing himself effectively with words, he also feared he might reveal too much about his life. After all, the people around him, except his roommate of course, couldn't guess he used to be a Merling. His skin was light and not blue, his hair was blonde and not white, and his iris was average size. Only his pupil was said to expand too much. "How long will you stay at the castle?" Charles then asked out of nowhere. "A couple of months, the end of April, I think." The man nodded and looked back at the building on the hill without displaying any kind of bitterness or relief. Dew wondered if that was how he appeared to others most of the time. Minutes or hours went by. Dew tried to make small talk, without success. It was obvious that in the end either of them preferred it this way. As the sun reached its highest point, Charles said his temporary goodbyes to go back, hoping Frederick had refilled his social battery. Not long after, Dew decided to follow his steps, but stood still on a crossroad right outside the city gates. He made up his mind quickly and took a turn to revisit the small pathway towards the graveyard. His steps found themselves leading him towards the special tomb he had noticed before. This time he didn't hesitate to sweep away the dirt and leaves. Revealed were the engravings of petite roses together with the numbers 1535 and 1562, as well as the words, "Here lies the young Queen Adelina, beloved by her people, loving wife and mother of 5. May they rest in peace." 5 children. The statues represented them. It's been a long time since someone last visited her grave. The gravedigger startled him once again. "What happened to her?" he asked, looking up at the man in black robes who was currently carrying a small clay pot with white tulips in his hand. The man scratched his chin. "A robe made of her blankets, I think. It was right after her 5th child passed away, an infant like all the others." Having so many stillbirths seemed unrealistic to do. Yes, it happened from time to time, and the medical care wasn't available to most women of lower standing, but this was the queen who had been treated like a goddess by her people. The gravedigger continued as if he had read his mind. "I buried all of them. I figured it was strange too, but didn't ask about it. Yet when it came to her 4th child..." He quieted down for a moment before finishing in a lowered voice. "Someone had broken its neck. I didn't know who. It might have been one of the nurses or a guard, but I know for sure that it was the command of the old king." "Why did her husband let that happen?" Dew questioned. "It was his wife after all. They say he actually loved her. So why?" "He probably didn't know. The old king was a ruthless monster and didn't even hesitate to kill his own queen in front of their son, as she confessed to cheating on him. Then he created a rule against domestic violence because he ran out of heirs. Rufus II was lucky he, as the result of the betrayal, even made it out alive. I wouldn't be surprised if the old man also threatened Adelina's life if she were to talk." Dew looked back at the little statues climbing all over the tomb as if they searched for a way to enter out of cravings for the comfort of their mother, something he knew too well. Was it because they were human children? The man nodded. Dew stared at the ground for a while until looking up again and searching for the gravedigger's warm brown eyes. Then he asked, "Who is the princess's mother then? Any speculations?" His opposite gestured to follow him. They didn't walk far until coming to a stop before what seemed to be a family grave. The man silently pointed at one of the less spotted names, Ophelia Millar, 1575 to 1592.